Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Musically Cogitating, a podcast about the relevance and importance of living and contemporary music of all kinds, and about how that music impacts our everyday lives. I, of course, am your host, Ciyadh Wells. Thank you so much for joining me here today, as always. Any important and relevant links will be mentioned in the show notes, and if you are enjoying this show, please subscribe on your podcast player of choice and maybe even share it with a friend. So in today's episode, I'm going to just do a little bit of a 2020 roundup and also look ahead to 2021 because I know that's what we're all really trying to do right now. I initially started this podcast because, well, I love podcasts, and I've realized this about myself, that I love to create the things that I like to consume. And so this podcast was born. I wanted to share and have deeper conversations about music and art and what that means to me and what that means to the lives of a lot of other people. And of course, this podcast isn't exclusively about any one genre or style of music. It's really open, it's really broad, and it's been really great so far for it to be that way. Art and music, of course, are really important and are part of our lives and our world. And I want to continue to have deeper conversations about that impact and influence. And this podcast has really enabled me to do that so far. And I just really love doing this with you all every other week. It's been great to get your feedback. It's been great to talk to you all. And I just love it. So a few 2020 milestones for the show. Started the show in September of this year. This is the 9th episode, excluding the podcast trailer. So far, I've done 7 solo episodes and 2 interviews with great friends. We are approaching almost 300 downloads, so thank you for that. We've launched social media accounts and a community there. Posted 4 blogs to accompany the podcast. And again, overall, I've just had a really, really great time doing this, and it has been so much fun, and I'm so glad that I decided to start up this podcast in this year of 2020. Looking ahead, of course, I have lots of exciting plans for 2021. I am planning to continue with this bi-weekly schedule, of course, hoping to publish more, but at least know that you'll be receiving something in your podcast player every other Wednesday. I'll be doing more interviews, so look out for that. That's going to be really exciting. And with my regular co-host, Jess, we will be doing at least 4 books as part of the Musically Cogitating book club. More on that in just a moment. We will be sharing more on our various social media platforms, specifically Twitter and Instagram. So there will be behind the scenes, different parts of the show, and other music stuff because I want to start sharing more stuff about music. Dive deeper into more relevant and timely topics is something that I'll be doing. Posting at least 2 blog posts a month on the Musically Cogitating blog, which you can also subscribe to if you haven't already. But you can subscribe to the newsletter, which will be coming out monthly, where it'll be like a roundup of all of the podcasts going on for that particular month and anything else. Another thing is, you're the first to hear it here, of course, is that there will be some Musically Cogitating merch. There will be at least one piece of merch or merch product coming out in the spring. And if you hear this and you're the first person to get it right, you will get a free version or thing of whatever it is that I start selling. So be on the lookout for that. That'll come out sometime in the spring, or Q1, as the business people like to say. We will be at some point launching more of a membership program over on Buy Me a Coffee, but you can, of course, now support the podcast on Buy Me a Coffee through a one-time or a regular recurring monthly donation. And there will be videos. There is, of course, the Musically Cogitating YouTube channel, where you can also listen to this podcast. And I'm hoping to do video recordings of some of the future interviews. So be on the lookout for that as well, as I think that will be a really cool way to interact and see how the show is made and what it is. Just a little bit about the upcoming episodes. I am super excited, the word of the day here, for the first podcast episode in the Musically Cogitating Book Club series, which will be The Revolution Will Not Be Funded Beyond the Nonprofit Industrial Complex, and that will be out on January 13th. Of course, regular co-host Jess Griggs will be joining me on that show, where we will discuss this really eye-opening text. It gives a great perspective on the nonprofit industrial complex, what that means. And we give a lot of commentary about what we think that means for people who work in the arts and nonprofits. So it's really, really great. The book is in 3 parts. So the first part will be out on January 13th. And if you'd like to purchase the book and read it ahead of listening, you can do so using the Musically Cogitating Podcast Book Club Bookshop affiliate link. So if you purchase a book using that link, it costs you nothing, but the podcast does receive a small commission. So again, you don't pay any extra. It's just that we receive a little bit, and that helps keep the show going. And our notes will be published alongside that episode. So if reading the book is not something that you really are interested in doing quite yet, but you still want to kind of get a little bit of a more in-depth look into the book, we will be publishing our notes. So that'll accompany that episode. Of course, this is a show about music, and if you haven't already heard, you can find all of the music recommendations from previous shows in the Musically Cogitating Spotify playlist, which is linked in the show notes. And my recommendation for this week is going to be Terrace Martin's latest release, which I believe is called Vanguard. Of course, it'll be in the podcast playlist. But it's a really, really awesome album. I spent my Saturday night listening to it, so that was a lot of fun. Well, don't forget to follow the podcast on social media. That is Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Of course, you can visit the Musically Cogitating website as well, which is updated rather frequently. We also have a newsletter, which you can subscribe to, where you will receive some additional bonus content about the show. That'll be coming out at least once a month in 2020, like I mentioned. If you're listening to this episode on Apple Podcasts, please give us a like, rating, and review, as it helps me to make the show better. And you can support the show on Buy Me a Coffee or using the Support the Show link in the show notes, where you can leave us a little bit of a donation, one time or recurring. Of course, no pressure. It's just something there if you are able. And so that is all today, folks. I will be back in 2 weeks, or I should say, Jess and I will be back in 2 weeks with the first episode in the Musically Cogitating Book Club series. Until then, bye-bye.